Hi, my name is Connie Gemson. Thank you for a good talk. Could you tell us about the process of getting your book published?
I will. I feel like this idea kind of had me by the throat for about 10 years until I finally woke up one morning and was like, okay, if I don't do this, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, this will be the regret that I never actually wrote the book. So I did a couple things that I would recommend. I signed up for a writing class with a friend. Shout out Ruthie Ackerman. You can Google her and find her writing classes. One of my writing class buddies is here. And Ruthie was really a kind of a coach portal community space that I needed. Another thing that I did was when I got a book deal, which was a thrilling moment, I found another peer support group, which was a group of people who also were writing books for the first time, and Liz Tran was in that group with me too. And then you just someone told me, stop talking about it, just do it. And that was okay, I guess it's just me, I am in the way of myself in this process, and once I kind of moved her to the side, it all fell into place. And I wrote a lot of it in the bath, so if that does anything for you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Garima Verma. I also recently lost my dad to brain cancer, and first I want to thank you. Dinner Party was the first place I found community that really helped.
Yay.
And kind of with that, how do you think we can all be part of that grief renaissance? Like, what can we do in our daily lives, in our own, in community with other people, to be able to kind of push that conversation forward and make grief an easier thing for people to talk about and handle?
First, I'm sorry to hear about your dad. What was his name?
Raman Verma.
Raman. Thank you. I'm glad that you found the dinner party.
No, thank you so much. It really helped. Like you said, brain cancer was unique, and I found a group that is specifically people who lost people to brain cancer.
Amazing.
So thank you so
Wait,
much.
I want to come.
Please do. Please do. I love them. They're wonderful.
Nice. And we'll exchange information after this. How do we embody this grief renaissance ideology? I think when someone is like, somebody died, we don't change the subject. We lean in. We ask their name. We make sure that we show up for the people that we know are grieving, not just in the first 40 days, but in the random 44th week since somebody died, or the 3rd year anniversary. I have a lot of calendar reminders in Google about people's death anniversaries, so I can send a friend a text, and it's a little type A, but it's what works for me. And yeah, I think that to actually do the work of practicing renegade grief, we have to find space in our life where we can see where grief is coming up in our own lives. So whatever that means for you. And I think the book is really a collection of care practices. Each chapter is like a deep dive into a different verb that you can experiment with to tend to your own grief and the grief of others. So read the book and let's talk after. See if you have any ideas. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Camille.
Camille.
I run a practice called The Wind Down, where I support social impact organizations that are closing.
Oh my gosh,
So I'm
awesome.
curious, how do people offboard from the dinner party?
Yeah.
And what is the overall trajectory of this as an organization? Do you ever think about the end of the dinner party?
Oh my gosh, somebody asked me that recently at a party, and they're like, you must know about endings, how do you end an organization? And wine shot out of my nose. We have defibrillated the dinner party so many times from the brink of collapse, won't let it go. And every time we've done that, it has continued on, and we've made it through the kind of grueling, guys, running a nonprofit is not for the faint of heart. That is intense. Luckily, she's still rolling, and we're so thrilled to have the staff that we have and the support that we get from our funders. And I think a lot of times, I want to talk to you about this. I hope you can answer this question too. I feel like our allergy to conclusion, to ending, to mortality means that we stay in things longer than we should. We force things to stand up longer than their legs want to support it. And I think talking about grief in the workplace, which is something that really doesn't happen all that often, just introducing that verbiage into the workplace can open up a whole other possibility of strategies for how you might think about what is the actual right next step. So yeah, I'd love to talk more with you about your work. I think it's if we can start grieving better and more openly with the obvious times we experience loss, what might happen in the world in the ways in which that grief and story of grief could enter workplaces, organizations, institutions. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Yvonne, visiting from LA.
Nice.
We're in a stage of grieving that someone in our life has brain cancer and will be passing away. How do you live? People don't want you to grieve in the process leading up to someone's passing. Yeah. They often say, oh, you've got to live in the present. So it's such a catch-22 where we want to live each day so fully, but we know what's coming ahead. And you walk through that path. So.
Brain cancer. Got brain cancer people here today. Anticipatory grief, tell whoever is pressuring you to like live in the moment that they can go fuck themselves, because anticipatory grief is a real thing. Like I started grieving my dad the day we got the diagnosis, and yes, there were moments where we were like, you're gonna beat this. He was never gonna beat this. And it was a brutal, intense, vivid year. And I had to be in the grief in order to actually show up for the moments where I could be basking in the beauty of our last year together. So like, we live in this culture that thinks that by ignoring the grief, we can just spend all of the time in like the love and light and positivity. But the paradox is to actually be in the love and light and positivity, you have to recognize the shadow side that is also very much in the room with us at all times. And I feel like we are afraid that you'll get stuck there, that you'll just become like this sad sack that nobody wants to talk to. If like you're, bummed that someone that you love has a terminal illness, it's like a crock of shit, is how I feel about it. So what I did was found people who knew what it was like to be going through what I was going through, people who had that like me too, who I didn't have to explain myself to. And I'm sure there are other people that are in this kind of like brain cancer support community that I would really encourage you to reach out to and find, because they'll probably get it more than anybody else can.
Do you want to take the last one? Can you handle the pressure?
So recently, I had a friend in a group. Oh, my fault. Oh, shit.
Oh, yeah, stand up.
Recently, I had a friend in my dance group who had died in a car crash a couple months ago. And, like, I just remember, the concept of, like, Robert Putnam talked in his book about being a joiner and having, like, group support and stuff like that. But one of the things I always thought was, like, each person has their own way of grieving stuff and stuff like that. And sometimes people are critical of the way that other people do stuff. But, I mean, there's a thing of like having the support of people, but how do you contend with, having different people having different methods of grieving and like, finding a middle ground where y'all can, I guess, find solace in each other?
Yeah, it's such a good question. There is not one right way to grieve, and we can so often be critical towards other people who might be grieving in a way that we don't get or that we don't even recognize as their way of tending to grief. Like, here's an example. I have 2 siblings. When our dad died, I was like, I'm going to start a nonprofit, and we're going to have dinners. We're going to start a movement. My brother was like, hell no, I'm going to Coachella and taking a bunch of MDMA with my friends. And my sibling was like, you guys are weird. I'm going to play D&D in my apartment and eat boba with my friends and process my grief through this world of escapism. And like each activism, feasting, celebration, escapism are all legit, beautiful, deep, historied ways of tending to grief. And they're each chapters in this book. And like, I wonder when you read this book, assuming you will, I hope you will, at least flip through it, that you would add your own chapter to it. Like, what is the thing that worked for you? What is the thing that you gave yourself permission to try that gave you that feeling of solace or relief or connection or community that you're longing for? And honestly, it will probably change every year, every month, every cycle of your life. And the work of Renegade Grief is really about staying awake at the wheel and about continuing to ask yourself, what is it that I need? What do the people around me need? How do we not fall asleep at the wheel as we tend to our grief and live our lives? So, yes. Thank you so much.